In the early hours of December 16, 1811, the peaceful silence of the American frontier was shattered by a force unlike anything settlers had ever experienced. Deep beneath the Mississippi River Valley, the Earth's crust ruptured violently, unleashing a colossal earthquake near New Madrid, Missouri. This wasn't just a tremor, it was a seismic monster, estimated at magnitude 7.5 or higher. People were thrown from their beds, trees twisted and cracked, and the land seemed to ripple like water. The sheer power of the quake defied comprehension, marking the beginning of one of the most violent and mysterious seismic events in American history. It would be the first in a terrifying series that lasted for months, reshaping the landscape, terrifying communities, and even reversing the course of the mighty Mississippi River. This wasn't just a natural disaster, it was a terrifying encounter with the raw power of a restless earth. In 1811, the central United States was a rugged, sparsely settled frontier, largely unknown and unexplored. The town of New Madrid, located along the Mississippi River, was a small hub for fur traders, farmers, and Native Americans. Most had no idea that this seemingly stable region sat atop one of the most dangerous seismic zones on the continent. When the December quake hit, its force was felt over 1 million square kilometers. Church bells rang in Boston, buildings swayed in Washington, D.C., and chimneys toppled as far as Cincinnati. Witnesses described roaring sounds from the ground, trees snapping like twigs, and animals fleeing in panic. Yet this was only the beginning. In the days and weeks to come, aftershocks continued relentlessly, some nearly as strong as the first. The ground seemed to live and breathe, and fear spread like wildfire through communities already unprepared for what was still to come. The earth did not settle. Instead, it continued to shake with terrifying unpredictability. Between December 1811 and March 1812, over 1,000 aftershocks were recorded, some so powerful they rivaled the original quake. The most destructive struck on January 23, 1812, causing landslides, collapsing structures, and creating massive ground fissures. Survivors described the land rippling in waves, swallowing trees, animals, and entire fields. The sound of the quakes was deafening, sometimes compared to the roar of cannon fire or thunder from beneath the ground. People were left disoriented and terrified, unsure when the next violent shake would come. Makeshift shelters were built outside, as no one trusted their homes to withstand the next shock. Some even feared the end of days had arrived. In a land without scientific explanation, all people had was faith, rumor, and the overwhelming sense that something beyond comprehension had been unleashed. Then came February 7, 1812, the most violent quake of the entire series. Just before dawn, the ground erupted again with devastating force. Trees bent in half, church steeples collapsed, and the landscape twisted in real time. But perhaps the most surreal sight was the Mississippi River reversing its flow. The quake caused sections of riverbed to rise and fall so dramatically that water was temporarily pushed backward. Massive waves surged upstream, overturning boats and drowning unwary travelers. Entire islands vanished. Riverbanks collapsed into the water, forming new lakes overnight. Panic turned to chaos as families fled inland, believing the earth itself had gone mad. In New Madrid, homes were destroyed, roads disappeared, and fires broke out amidst the trembling. It was the peak of the New Madrid earthquake sequence, a moment where nature completely rewrote the rules, defying logic, gravity, and the expectations of an entire generation. With no modern instruments to measure the destruction, early Americans relied on what they could see, feel, and hear. The stories they passed down paint a vivid picture of horror. Ground fissures opened wide enough to swallow barns. Water and sand erupted from beneath the earth in violent jets, forming sand blows that coated entire farms in gray sediment. In some areas, the soil liquefied, causing structures to tilt, sink, or disappear entirely. Night brought no safety, only more quakes, louder groans, and strange lights seen flickering across the horizon. The small town of New Madrid, already devastated, became a ghost town. The shaking didn't stop, it pulsed through the days and weeks like a heartbeat from underground. Many believed they had angered God or that the land itself was cursed. With no scientific explanations and no help from the outside world, fear became a permanent resident of the frontier. Amid the destruction, a new feature emerged, Reelfoot Lake in northwestern Tennessee. Before the earthquakes, this vast, swampy basin did not exist. But during the seismic chaos, land subsided dramatically, and water from the Mississippi and nearby streams rushed in to fill the sunken earth. Entire forests were drowned, and now dead trees still rise eerily from its waters. The lake remains as a silent monument to the violence of the quakes. Locals crafted legends to explain its birth. Some said the land was punished, others believed it was a sacred transformation. With no science to guide them, survivors found meaning in myth. Reelfoot Lake stands today not just as a geographic change, but as a symbol of how profoundly the earthquakes reshaped the environment. Its formation is one of the most remarkable natural consequences of the New Madrid sequence, showing how even destruction can leave behind a strange kind of beauty. Despite unimaginable trauma, many settlers chose to rebuild. New Madrid, though nearly erased, slowly came back to life. Survivors adapted, though fear lingered in every tremor and crackle from the earth. In the decades that followed, researchers began to study the region's geology. By the 20th century, the area was officially named the New Madrid Seismic Zone. Scientists discovered a buried fault system responsible for the devastating events of 1811 and 1812. Today, more than 10 million people live within the region's potential impact zone. Major cities, highways, and pipelines are built atop soil that once danced like waves. Experts warn that another massive quake is not just possible, it is expected. The next one, however, could cause national-scale catastrophe. The New Madrid earthquakes remind us that nature does not forget, and that the most dangerous faults may be the ones we cannot see. Modern scientists still puzzle over the New Madrid quakes. Unlike most seismic zones near tectonic boundaries, this one lies in the middle of a continental plate. How could such powerful earthquakes strike here, far from oceanic ridges or fault lines like California's San Andreas? Theories point to ancient rift zones and deep crustal weaknesses, reawakened by shifting pressures over millions of years. But the truth is, we still don't fully understand the forces beneath the Mississippi Valley. What we do know is sobering: the region remains active. Small tremors still occur frequently, and stress continues to build. The U.S. Geological Survey estimates a high likelihood of another major event within decades. The New Madrid earthquakes weren't just an isolated catastrophe, they were part of a recurring pattern. And in a modern world built on fragile ground, the echoes of the past may be a warning we can't afford to ignore. As 1811 to 1812 earthquakes weren't a single event, but a sequence of powerful shocks. The first major tremor struck on December 16, 1811, near present-day Blytheville, Arkansas. It was followed by intense aftershocks and then two more massive quakes, one on January 23 and another on February 7, 1812. The final quake is believed to have been the strongest. These three primary earthquakes were estimated to be around magnitude 7.5 to 8.0. What made them terrifying wasn't just their strength, but their timing. Each occurred early in the morning, waking people in panic. Entire communities felt the ground split, trees snap, and chimneys collapse. The earth roared with a sound people described as thunder coming from underground. Horses panicked, rivers shifted, and the night sky glowed with strange lights, likely caused by piezoelectric effects. It was as if nature itself had turned against everything people thought was solid and secure. One of the most astonishing effects of the February 7 quake was the reversal of the Mississippi River's flow. Eyewitnesses described how the water was thrown into massive swells and waves, surging back upstream. Boats were tossed violently, and sections of the riverbed rose abruptly. This sudden upheaval caused a temporary damming of the river, which then burst and flowed backward over the surrounding land. This phenomenon wasn't just a curious detail, it was a sign of the extraordinary force of the quake. Entire islands vanished, riverbanks crumbled, and waterfalls appeared where none had existed before. The river, a symbol of constant, flowing life, had defied logic. This reversal was brief, but it left a lasting mark on both the physical landscape and the memory of everyone who witnessed it. Even today, it's considered one of the most dramatic natural events ever recorded in American history. The destruction was widespread. In New Madrid, Missouri, the epicenter, most structures were reduced to rubble. Log cabins collapsed, ground fissures opened wide enough to swallow livestock, and vast swaths of land were permanently altered. Roads became impassable, and entire forests were flattened. Towns hundreds of miles away reported significant shaking. Church bells rang in Boston. Chimneys toppled in Cincinnati. The quakes were felt over an area of more than 1 million square miles. The sheer scale puzzled scientists and horrified citizens. Survivors described hearing eerie subterranean booms, seeing sand geysers shoot from the earth, and watching the ground roll like waves on the sea. These sand blows and liquefaction effects were common across the Mississippi Valley. In the midst of the destruction, stories of survival and tragedy echoed through the small communities, revealing the terrifying randomness of who lived and who perished. Despite the magnitude of the disaster, the official death toll remains uncertain. At the time, the region was sparsely populated, and communication was limited. Many deaths, especially among Native American tribes and remote settlers, went unrecorded. What we do know is that countless people lost homes, farms, and entire communities. The landscape itself was transformed. The formation of Reelfoot Lake in northwestern Tennessee is a direct result of the earthquakes. The ground sank, creating a large basin that filled with water. Forests drowned, and new wetlands were born overnight. Wildlife was disoriented, and hunting patterns of indigenous tribes were disrupted for years. The Mississippi Valley had changed, not just geologically, but culturally and economically. Settlers had to rebuild in uncertainty, never knowing if the earth would tremble again. These were not just geological events, they were deeply human ones. What caused such massive earthquakes in a region so far from known tectonic boundaries? The answer lies in the New Madrid seismic zone, a fault system buried deep beneath the soft soils of the Mississippi Valley. Unlike the more familiar faults along the edges of tectonic plates, the New Madrid faults are interplate faults, zones of weakness within a tectonic plate itself. These hidden fractures occasionally release enormous stress built up over centuries. In 1811 and 1812, that stress was unleashed with catastrophic consequences. Since then, scientists have studied the region closely, discovering that smaller quakes occur there every year. Though mostly unnoticed, they are reminders that the danger remains. Today, millions of people live in cities like Memphis and St. Louis, not far from this still active seismic zone. A major quake today could cause unprecedented damage, given the population and infrastructure density. The New Madrid earthquakes deeply influenced early American consciousness. Newspapers and journals struggled to describe what had happened. Some interpreted the events as divine punishment or omens. Others saw them as natural warnings. The quakes became part of folklore and storytelling. The stories were told in log cabins, at campfires, and in frontier towns. One popular tale was about a man who survived being thrown into the air by a fissure only to land on the back of his fleeing horse. Native American tribes, including the Shawnee, saw spiritual meaning in the tremors. For settlers, the earthquakes reinforced a sense of unpredictability in the vast new territory. They underscored the fragility of existence and the raw power of nature. As America pushed westward, the quakes remained a cautionary tale, that even in a young and growing nation, the ground beneath could not be trusted. Today, the legacy of the New Madrid earthquake still echoes. The region remains one of the most seismically active areas east of the Rockies. Emergency preparedness campaigns remind residents of the historic quakes, urging them to secure homes and schools. Buildings in high-risk areas are reinforced, and geological studies continue to assess future risks. But many people remain unaware of the past or underestimate the possibility of recurrence. Scientists warn that another large quake in this region could affect millions, damaging infrastructure, disrupting transportation, and causing economic chaos. Yet, despite these warnings, development continues, often without strict building codes. The story of 1811 to 1812 is not just history, it's a warning. A call to remember what happened when the Mississippi ran backward, the earth cracked open, and a young nation trembled. It is a reminder that the past can, and often does, shake the future. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of the most powerful and